Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to another Dragon Ball Super discussion video. Joining me once again is the one, the only, you haven't seen him or heard from him on this channel for a very long time. It's none other than the other half of the dynamic duo, the one, the only, my sugar daddy, MJ from MJ TV. Man, why don't you say hello to everyone listening?
You guys saw the thumbnail and the title. This is not my idea. Reiterating that. This is not my idea. He put me up to this. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Okay. I just want to really explain this to you guys because you probably don't know what we're getting at from the title itself. But is Dragon Ball Super the most Dragon Ball series that ever existed? And look, I understand that that's one of the things like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, or what are you even trying to say? Well, I'm not trying to say the best Dragon Ball series ever made. I think that there's a lot of nostalgia out there for things like Dragon Ball Z, and even though you probably didn't watch a Dragon Ball as a kid, and I'm talking mostly to the Western world, English-speaking world, most of us didn't. The dubs just weren't out. But you've gone back to it, hopefully you've watched it, or you've read the manga, or anything else like that, and you know that's probably the best told story ever in a Dragon Ball manga or episodic format with the anime, something where we have Goku from a little kid growing up to the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai fighting Piccolo. There's just so much awesome character development for everyone involved. It's funny, it's heartfelt, everything involved with that. But, and I really have to put a big preface on this, but it is not the Dragon Ball that we all loved, that we all probably, maybe all is a little strong at least on this, but most of us started watching Dragon Ball Z with Raditz, or maybe you started in the Saiyan arc, or sometime during the Frieza fight, or Namek, or even Cell or Buu, or wherever you started. That is the Dragon Ball you know, love. That's the Dragon Ball you know, and that is primarily the Dragon Ball that set the world on fire, that made this franchise what it is today. But Dragon Ball Z lost something that Dragon Ball always had and was always supposed to have. That kind of otherworldly, kind of immature humor to it that would make us laugh and really start to love these characters in moments of peace and tranquility and not just utter torment every single day. It reminds me of that Team 4-Star History of Trunks asking Gohan, like, was it better when you were a kid? He's like, well, no, because my uncle kidnapped me, killed my dad, got kidnapped, and it goes on and on and on. It's a really dark series. Dragon Ball Super, though, comes in and it has the Dragon Ball Z action that we all know and love, that we all grew up with. And I think anyone listening to this and has watched Dragon Ball for as long as they have, look at that and go, wow, that's a fantastic fight. Or wow, I can't believe they were able to do this, or that transformation, or that moveset was super awesome. But it also have these slice of life, amazing comedic moments where they really capture what it was for Gohan or Goku or 18 or 17 or even Frieza. All of these moments where we're like, that's genuinely funny. They captured the character really well. And I genuinely laughed watching that scene. This is the only series that captures both those elements. What we grew up with primarily in the Western speaking world of action-packed, nonstop, with the heartfelt humor and character moments that Dragon Ball had. This one melds the two perfectly, and that's why, at least in my opinion, Dragon Ball Super is one of the best series in the entire canon of Dragon Ball, and probably the most Dragon Ball of Dragon Ball series that was ever released. So I know that was a huge mouthful, but MJ, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny because just the other day, I'd actually tweeted out, contrary to popular belief, I don't like Super more than Z, and I added, that's Rockrai. But sorry, Rockrai, RIP to your mentions of, you got hate for that. I wasn't trying to cause you that, but it's funny because you are right. There is a legitimate argument for that. For one, Super is not the most well-written show. It's not even the most well-written show within its own verse, the own Dragon Ball continuity. So I want to point that out there before people start screaming that out, because there's a stigma with Super. The whole idea is that it sucks because the animation looks like episode 5 or the artwork looks like episode 5, or they retold the the movie, so they're lazy and this and that, and they were worse in the movie, so the story sucks. You know, there's a stigma with this. So the idea is that Super just straight up sucks. And if you feel that way, that's fine. However, though, like Realtor was bringing out, you know, in that little tangent of his, there's actual redeeming qualities in this show. One of the things that he's talking about with Raditz is that Toonami. A lot of people, you know, what was it, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, right? After school, they would come home when they were kids and they would watch that. It was on Toonami. They grew up watching that stuff. Probably started in the Frieza arc, went into the Cell arc and all that stuff. Everybody loved that. And in the Frieza and Cell arc, we got those very fast-paced fights. Like, don't get me wrong, there was a lot of martial arts in Dragon Ball Z, but not as much as early Dragon Ball. In Dragon Ball Z, it became more about the fast-paced punches, the ki blasts, the repeated frames, you know, just fast-paced, hard impacts, right? And that's what we get in Super. And then when you talk about the humor, like the driver's license episode, which some of the people, yeah, people love that. That's one of the probably the funniest episodes of all time, like in all of Dragon Ball. People love that stuff, and we get that stuff in Super. You know, whether it's whether you want to call it filler or in between, but the slice of life stuff. Episode 70, you know, for example, we got an Raleigh episode similar to the Dragon Ball stuff. You know, we got a Raleigh back in Super episode, I think 68 or 69. People love that stuff. I think people who legitimately hated the Future Trunks arc actually came out and was like, yeah, that was a good episode. That was funny. That's Dragon Ball at its best. You know, that's the type of humor we like, and that's a lot of the things that I think GT was kind of lacking was humor. Because I always say this, real. The one bad thing a show can do is bore me. And with GT, for majority of that show, for me at least, and you can disagree with me, but I just found it to be very boring. Like, it just felt very boring and bland to me. And with Super, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds with Z and with Dragon Ball. Like you mentioned, you kind of miss out on that fast-paced, hard-hitting action in the first, you know, couple of arcs, especially the Red Ribbon and the Search for the Dragon Balls. Here, you're getting it, you know, especially now the Tournament of Power. If anyone tries to say the Tournament of Power fights suck, I mean, I don't know. Then go watch Attack on Titan or something, dog. I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's gonna please you or not. But these fights that we've been getting, bro, have been awesome. Goku versus Kefla, the recent Goku versus Jiren, the 1 hour special, Hit versus Jiren, and so on and so forth. Oh, the Namekians versus Gohan and Piccolo. That was an awesome tag team fight. So it's like we've been getting so many good fights, and I'm missing others too that we got even before the tournament. With Super, we're getting the best of both worlds, and with all that being said, like you mentioned, there's a legitimate argument that this could be the best that Dragon Ball has been Dragon Ball, if that makes sense, because you're getting the best of everything. Maybe you're not getting that, you know, that back-to-back consistent story, you know, like the 22nd tournament fitting all the way in and connecting and tying into the 23rd tournament, you know. Maybe you're not getting that. Maybe you're not getting the Saiyan arc and the Frieza arc and the history of the Saiyans mixed with Frieza's connection. Maybe we're not getting all that, but one thing that they have done a lot has entertained me, and whether it be the humor, whether it be the badass fight scenes, whether it be them expanding on the lore. Like I said, there's redeeming qualities. Also, the soundtrack is awesome too. I want to point that out.
You know, the thing is, when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, I didn't really expect this going into the series, but I think a lot of people wanted Dragon Ball Super to be another extension of Dragon Ball Z. And when you go back and watch the first arc, or even just the first couple episodes in the first arc, some of the episodes leading up to the whole Frieza thing, and then definitely some of the stuff leading up to the whole Champa arc, and there's just a lot of slice of life episodes into this that really call in that old humor, that old style of Toriyama, and probably Toritaro's kind of picked up on as well, and Toei just absolutely knows from its 30 years of producing Dragon Ball content with, like, I love these characters. I just want to see what they do in their day-to-day lives. There are some amazing episodes, and I think it's worth arguing some of the best episodes in the entire canon of the show, whatever your thought of the canon actually is, where it's just nothing but Baby Pan just, like, kind of flying around doing her own thing. It's like, that's amazing. I love that stuff. It's just kind of carefree and super adorable, but it's not the fast-paced action of Dragon Ball Z. And the one reason I think it's worth mentioning is because I know a lot of people, a lot of diehard fans, a lot of, I guess, completists, I guess, elitists, and also purists, for the most part, when it comes to Dragon Ball, consider the original series the best thing the show or the manga or anything has ever had to offer. And I completely understand where you're coming from with that. I said at the very beginning of the video, this is a franchise. This is a story that was never more well received and well told. Well told, I guess, is the better proper term for that, than Dragon Ball. It was so well put together, from the introduction of Goku, the introduction of the Dragon Balls with Bulma, the whole journey there, through meeting Master Roshi, the 21st tournament, the Red Ribbon Army stuff with 22nd tournament leading into Piccolo Daimao, leading into Piccolo Jr., and everything from there. Well-told story. But I've always had a problem with it, and I feel like people who argue hand over foot that Dragon Ball, especially the first 13 or so episodes of Dragon Ball, and it just gets worse from there, completely miss the utter cultural impact that Dragon Ball Z had. And I understand there was a vast portion of the world who got Dragon Ball Z before Dragon Ball, so they didn't have a chance to actually understand or entertain what that was. But look at how it developed in the future. We had Dragon Ball Z come in, absolutely drop the bomb, people completely losing their minds over it, became a cultural touchstone for a generation of young males and young females going into the whole tsunami age in the States and also in the European countries and everything else like that. This is the Dragon Ball that Dragon Ball became. It is what Dragon Ball became with Super, and eventually what it became with GT. When they finally decided to start doing more Dragon Ball-esque stories, even lifting the same story from the original 13 episodes of Dragon Ball or the Search for the Dragon Balls and put them in the first 13 episodes or so of Dragon Ball GT, it failed. It's probably the thing that got that show canceled, and it wasn't just a failure in the Western world with people who got introduced to Dragon Ball Z first. Dragon Ball GT failed in Japan first. People were not really liking that stuff. Yeah, you could say they didn't really catch the humor. It was too much of a drawback or callback to everything that happened before it. But I think it's pretty safe to assume that people all across the world realized in unison around the 22nd World Martial Arts Tournament, but definitely around the Piccolo Daimao and Piccolo Jr. fight, and definitely into Dragon Ball Z, that this is what Dragon Ball was. Yes, we do tolerate and we love these characters enough to see their slice of life moments and see all the humor that goes along with Goku being the perpetual childlike state protagonist that he's always been, while we see other characters like Gohan and Vegeta and Bulma and everyone else grow up around him to the point where they're their own legitimate characters. But if it's not huge fights, if it's not anything else like that, it's not Dragon Ball. That's what the world has considered Dragon Ball. And yeah, you might want to sit there and be like, okay, it's just big guys with muscles, no shirts on, screaming at the top of their lungs. If that's what it has to be, it's what it has to be. And Dragon Ball Super has delivered on all fronts. It's one of the reasons I absolutely love this show, and I will always continue to stand by its side and always argue the fact that it's not the worst thing that they've ever produced. In fact, there's so much right with it that I feel like we should celebrate it for not only existing, but also the creative feats that it's brought to the table and ways that it can actually extend the future of the franchise in ways that Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT really couldn't. So I'm really excited to see what they do in the future, and I really will sit there, plant my flag in the sand and be like, this is the best Dragon Ball show that ever Dragon Balled.
Look, I said this the other night on Twitter. After Dragon Ball Super 130 aired, Dragon Ball Super was trending worldwide. Very few times have Dragon Ball ever really trended, at least, in this day and age with Twitter and stuff like that. And with Super trending worldwide, bro, and with the fact that we recently got some numbers, you're probably gonna lose your mind when I tell you this. You already know about, because I told you a while back, that Dragon Ball beat Gundam in merch. Get a load of this. Ethan Law reported on Twitter the other day, DB made nearly twice as much as One Piece for Toei in Japan for the first 9 months. So, and when you look at the graphical charts for the domestic licensing in the top 4 for Toei, Dragon Ball, Precure, One Piece, Saint Seiya, and others, Dragon Ball takes up 45% of the market of the in the chart. It's literally almost half of the pie. So with that being said, no matter if you like Super or what you think about Dragon Ball as a whole, because there are a lot of people who don't like Dragon Ball. You know, they don't like Z, don't like Dragon Ball itself. Dragon Ball is a legit monster, and Dragon Ball is probably one of the most legendary and iconic shows ever. And with that being said, no matter what you think of Super, Dragon Ball as a whole is, I think it's a great time to be a Dragon Ball fan. And with everything you said, I completely agree with you. I think right now, Super, and then with the movies and everything, they're capturing, I think they really are capturing that essence of Dragon Ball. Again, we're not trying to say it has the best story or anything, but when it comes to just pure action, the fight scenes, the humor, and how they capture us and make us feel, get us like, I don't want to say get us in our feelings, but, get us, emotional sometimes. I think that's awesome, so, yeah.
I completely agree. It is a amazing time to be a Dragon Ball fan. Even if the series is ending, I know a lot of people are worried about that, but we got the movie to look forward to. We got games and Dokkan and everything else that we are all excited about in the coming months and future of Dragon Ball, and I really would not be, although this is not a confirmation, I have no way of knowing this, but I just would not be surprised if Dragon Ball Super comes back in a much sooner timeline than we're all anticipating right now. Or maybe some of you people will feel like, oh, I thought of that, or it was my theory that it would come back that soon. I'm not sure. The thing is I can't imagine them putting this gigantic juggernaut to bed at this point when it's just seemingly firing on all cylinders and even creating a show that, while might be inconsistent at points where it's almost frustrating and futile to even decide what's going on or how any of it logically makes sense or any of that other stuff. It is just bringing it every single week until it ends. All 131 episodes of the show, 130 that have aired, have been amazing in their own right and stand amongst being one of the best series that this show has ever produced. I would say. I know a lot of people will disagree with that. That's totally fine. I mean, everyone is definitely worth their own opinion in this whole discussion, and that's what I really want to see here is you guys go down to the comment section below, share your thoughts and opinions on this. What are your thoughts on Dragon Ball Super as a whole, especially as we come towards the very end of the series? And anything else like that, please make sure to go down to the description section below, hit that link, and go subscribe to MJ. The guy makes some really awesome Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball, and also anime content, so you're not going to want to miss any of that stuff. I hope everyone will like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. And also make sure to share this video out to all of your friends because we want to hear all their thoughts and opinions as well. Plus, for MJ and myself both, please make sure to go check us out on Twitter, because if you want to get a hold of us pretty easily, we're both always on there, like every single hour of the day. We'll probably see it if you tweeted us like a question or even just like anything else like that. So hope you guys are having a fantastic day. It's been real.